It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, the home of real estate as we look forward to 2025. We're in it now, already the third day of January. Hope your holiday is going well. I hope you're putting your feet up. Boy, didn't we have a really big year for 2024 last year. We are into a Friday morning. It is January the 3rd, and in just a moment we are going to time travel back to June of last year with our summer series.
The Real Estate Podcast wishes you and your family a fantastic Christmas break and a happy new year ahead. You're listening to the summer series on the Real Estate Podcast.
What was it about real estate when you were at school that you thought, well, this is probably something that I actually could go into and really sort of excel at?
I think the biggest thing was that you didn't need to be a rocket scientist. It didn't take a lot of, study to get your foot in the door. Obviously, you need to be very skilled in other areas, but those things that you can learn as you go. So there was a medium barrier to entry. I guess the easiest thing to sort of jump straight into out of school rather than going straight into study.
Yeah, because we have a high rate of failures. I forget what that percentage is, but it's well past 85% of people getting into the industry and then falling out of it within the first 12 months. So it's not for everybody, clearly.
No, it's a very unique industry in the sense of you need to have the right support around you to excel. And it is in a lot of different areas, very sink or swim. And I think I was very grateful that I had a lot of support, which propelled me into the direction that I felt very supported and I could do good things in that space.
Well, especially when you've decided to bite the bullet and set up your own real estate company at such a young age.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, an opportunity. I think both me and my business partner decided we've been in the industry very similar timelines and thought that there was an opportunity for us as young individuals to make a change and do things differently and do things better, which is very exciting.
I guess that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's finding your own sort of rhythm and the way that you're interacting with people, because some people decide that for whatever reason they'll go into real estate, but they're not really good communicators, and you do need to be able to talk.
Absolutely. I think it's the number one skill to have, and I think that will propel you more than anything else, is being able to have the good conversations and the difficult conversations and not be fazed by either. Just go all in.
And how do you feel about Canberra's high rating for quality of life with this survey, this result that's just recently come out from Oxford Economics?
I think it's an amazing nod to Canberra. I think we have a very planned city. We have great restaurants. We have some of the best coffee. That's probably a little bit biased from me, but it doesn't surprise me that we've got the mention. If you live here, you can certainly understand why we've got the second spot.
Well, that's right. If you're a first home buyer and you come from a background where you can't tap into family wealth, low interest rates over time helps with mortgage serviceability, but it also at the same time it drives up prices. And the more it drives up prices, the harder it actually becomes to get over that deposit hurdle. So, if prices double, effectively your 20 or 10 or 20% deposit has to double as well. And so it becomes harder for people who haven't actually got any wealth to tap into to actually just get on that first rung of the property ladder to pay that deposit and buy a property, even if they are potentially in circumstances where low interest rates might have helped them with mortgage serviceability. They just can't get that foothold in the market to start with.
Yeah, and what do you think is one of the more interesting things, perhaps, for the next 12 months to 18 that we might see happen in the property market? Is there anything that you're kind of watching with a lot of interest in?
Look, I think that the problem with the market now is that it's frozen to the extent that we've gone through a period where development costs, construction costs, labour costs, material costs have all increased significantly. And it's been very hard for developers to make projects stack up at current prices. And this has been one of the challenges of the market. for all the talk about we'll rezone land, we'll make land more available to build. The fact is, building doesn't stack up financially for most projects unless you're pitching it at the top end of the market and you can command a premium price. Really, for the market to move on and for us to actually be able to add more supply to the market, we just still need more, pains to say it, but we need more price growth to come through to actually make more projects stack up. And so I think will be the outcome, to the detriment of most people still trying to get into the market.
It's probably likely to happen. Like what you're saying is likely to happen because the pricing doesn't look like, we're suddenly going to reverse it and go in the opposite direction.
Yep, exactly. And at the end of the day, that's how markets resolve themselves. Prices rise, it starts attracting a lot more investment in, more supply gets built, reduces a lot of the pressures that were creating those price rises in the first place, and the market balances out until we get another round of rising construction costs or rising interest rates or other things that impact feasibilities again. So, in some ways we're just part of the normal cycle, but it's probably just a lot more pronounced in terms of where we are.
Decode the property market with insider knowledge and insights to better navigate your real estate journey on the Real Estate Podcast.
Absolutely. For a long time in Brisbane, no one really wanted units, but as the price of houses went up, people decided to compromise on the dwelling as opposed to compromising on the location, which has had this big push into units. I know CoreLogic's data shows that units are up about 8% this year, but from what I'm seeing on the ground in these inner ring locations, so I'm talking, maybe 2 to 5 kilometres from the CBD, a lot of these have gone up $100,000 in, the last 6 months or so. You're getting lines out the door for open homes, perhaps 20 written offers on a property. It's extremely competitive, and there's also very low supply as well.
And just in terms of those first-time buyers at the moment, how much of that is going on in terms of business? Because I note that you are a buyer's agent and not all first-home buyers can afford to engage with you.
Yeah, it's funny. First home buyers are actually one of our key demographics that we work with. So we know that a lot of first home buyers are strapped for cash. So we offer competitive fees for those below a certain budget, and we actually allow them to pay that off by a payment plan if they really need. That's helping us work with more first home buyers. The value for using a buyer's agent has probably never been greater for a first home buyer though, because if they're not buying this month because they're not confident or they don't understand the market yet, they're probably going to have to pay maybe $15,000 the next month for a similar apartment anyway.
Single female market for apartments. A lot of them are buying. 9 out of the last 10 that you've sold are coming from females.
Yeah, correct. So I guess even to break that down a little bit further, so we bought for 15 single females this year. 9 of those have been apartments. And then of the apartments or units that we have purchased, 9 of the 10 were single females. What we tend to find is that security is a big issue for single females, and also the ability to lock up and leave the property. Another thing that we do find quite common, and often why people engage people like us, is because they also have the added complexity of needing to bring their dog or pet into the property. So perhaps they need garden space or a bigger balcony to be able to suit the dog, as well as clauses put in the contract to ensure that the dog is allowed. So yeah, we're seeing a massive shift of single females buying apartments.
Is that security question, has that sort of come up a little bit more in the last few years, do you think?
I haven't seen it come up anymore, actually.
I tell you, the reason why I ask that is, since we've gone through COVID, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that seems to be happening. I mean, we don't need to talk about it, but when they pick up a knife, they're not too scared to use it. And there's all sorts of crazy activity, people, being locked up and quite violent. So that's the reason why I say whether or not you've seen over the last 3 years or even in the last 12 months, it's sort of risen.
I have noticed an uptick in people wanting surveillance features or security features once they've purchased the property, that's for sure. So whether it be electronic locks or CrimSafe on the doors, things like that. So yeah, I have seen a shift there.
Every week, unravel the real estate market to empower your real estate knowledge.
So we had this 28-foot shipping container and it sailed the high seas all the way from Australia. It was packed up in October and it hit the ocean and arrived at the end of March at Jebel Ali Port in Dubai. Now, this shipping container holds all of my life's possessions. So furniture, but also artwork, clothes, mementos, books, and just, everything that one collects over a lifetime. So I contacted the shipping company to let them know we were ready. And they came back and said everything has been sitting in nearly a metre of flood water since April 16th. So that's 6 weeks sitting in stagnant water. So obviously we were pretty devastated. I went to the warehouse and spent a whole day there opening up 133 boxes to see what was salvageable. And, nearly everything was water damaged, covered in green mold. There's moisture damage in the electronics. But really the most heartbreaking discovery was all my childhood photos and mementos were completely submerged in water and they're completely destroyed and can't be saved.
Oh, no. I mean, that is a terrible story, isn't it? Especially off the back of having bought your apartment. You moved, of course, into Dubai, this whole new life, and to lose all of that personal stuff. I mean, that's extremely devastating. As far as insurance is concerned, it does illustrate why people must have insurance, which, of course, you did, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky we've got the insurance. Obviously, we're going to have to jump through some hoops to get it. But really, there's just some things that you can't replace with money. And I think being so far from home, you've got these objects that just are part of your identity. So, I've gone through a range of emotions, anger, sadness, but you just have to look at the bigger picture. And there are so many people in the world, particularly in this region, who are going through so much worse, who have lost absolutely everything. So I am actually grateful that I've got my health, that I'm safe, and that I've got so many family and friends.
Now, I have to ask the question because some people might be wondering, did you manage to back up all of those childhood photos?
Well, unfortunately, no. So I had the originals, and then people from the 80s might remember in the back of an album, there's a little pocket that says negatives. Mm-hmm. You put your negatives in there, but they're in the same place. So if one gets destroyed, so does the other. Yeah,
well, that sort of leads me on to just your personal situation. Of course, the bad news about the shipping. That's one thing. Then we've got your first summer in Dubai. So how do you think you're going to actually cope with this heat?
Well, it's hot. It's beginning of June and it's already personally getting quite unbearable out there. So I was curious. I looked up what the hottest temperature ever recorded in Dubai was. This only happened last year on July 16th. The bulb hit 49 degrees. And the thing is that we often see this feels like temperature on our phones, which is usually higher. So this feels like temperature. It takes environmental data like the ambient air temperature, relative humidity, and the wind. And then it gives us what it actually feels like, which is probably about 60, 65 degrees here in Dubai.
How acclimatised do you feel at the moment? I suppose it's really hard to sort of gauge that because we haven't really hit the peaks yet.
Really not at all. I mean, I'm from Australia where it gets pretty hot every year, but, we've got the beaches there to cool down where the ocean's nice and cold. So not acclimatised yet, but trying.
Let's explore together the power of real estate. We keep you better informed and updated.
And back to the breakfast conversation this morning is Mario Volpe, who has some of those locations in mind that do offer some great value regarding buying properties to work from home. So what have you got for us this morning, Mario, where people can do that?
I can think of two good areas that would fit this bill. One area is called Barsha Heights. Now, this was formerly known as TCOM. The area is great for remote working because it's really well connected to both Sheikh Zayed Road and the Al Khail Road, and not too far from Dubai Internet City Metro Station. This is important, obviously, in case for connectivity. The location also has good combination of residential apartments and hotel apartments. The other popular area to work from would be Jumeirah Lakes Towers, and this area is served by the DMCC Free Zone. Now, this has 2 metro stations, and there are at least 80 towers within the master community to choose from. And one area is called Uptown, which is destined to be very popular, where residents can live, play, and work. This whole area has been designed for the work from home fraternity, actually.
I wonder just how many of these developers are sort of lobbying the government, the land department, in terms of these work from home areas, these designated areas, because they're very quick to pivot, and you kind of wonder whether they're going to open that up over a period of time, maybe in the next 12 months, so that there are more areas that people can work from home.
I agree, and they should look at that, to be honest with you, because in Dubai, it's all luxury. Sometimes somebody may look at something a little bit more affordable, depending on the area. But these are just the two sort of areas that developers focus on. They don't really focus by thinking outside the box. And I think working from home, especially for some of these industries that it's ripe for that, they would also have a lot of interest. So they're not really thinking, as I say, outside the box and trying to generate more diverse buyer groups, to be honest with you.
And since we're talking about developers, Mario, some of these local developers there in Dubai have been fined.
Yeah, this is hitting the news wires just a short while ago, and we found out that the Dubai Land Department has fined these 3 developers, although interestingly, they don't actually name them. They've been fined 500,000 dirhams each for promoting and marketing real estate projects without completing the required registration procedures for off-plan projects. Now, this is in accordance with law number 8 of 2007. The escrow account, for the listeners, is a bank account designated for a real estate project where the funds collected from buyers of off-plan units are deposited, and the account aims to regulate the construction process of the units sold, ensuring the protection of the investor's rights. Now this is quite significant because obviously, let's say 16 years ago when I first started, regulations weren't necessarily in place. So you had developers selling projects where they didn't even own the land. So it was really important that they quickly regulated to give safety to the investors, and that has now happened. So the fact that these 3 developers, as I say, they're not named, have been hauled over the coals and made public that the Land Department have fined them just to ensure investors here do feel safe and comforting that their protection is paramount in the eyes of the law.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.